joining me. I'm glad you're here. Let me see. Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda, and I'm an educator with Genome Canada. And today we are going to be doing continuous bias tape. Oh, gray in Vancouver today. Boo. I wish we could have some sun. That's sad. Sun makes me so much more happy. Anyway, so today we're going to do some bias tape. So I'll turn us back around and get out some of my bias tape for you. So I have a collection of bias tape because I am a quilter and I make my own bias tape all the time for my quilt projects. Oh, Belleville, that's so close to where I grew up. So let's go over the different types. So this is some of my quilt binding. It's continuous and it is just a single fold over of a strip of fabric. Hello everyone, thanks for joining in. Okay, and then another type is a single fold. So this is a strip of fabric. This one is 2 inches wide and it's just folded right into the middle, and that is your single fold tape. And then for a double fold, it's really simple. You just fold the single fold in half and that encloses all the raw edge right in there. Oh, lots of people from Ontario. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. So this is a double foil that I have finished with a zigzag stitch. So there's lots of different types of bias tape. And today we're talking about continuous bias tape. You can buy bias tape already made, but it's great fun to make your own and have different colors. And we call it bias tape. Sometimes the fabric is actually cut on a bias, but here we have, it is cut on a bias and joined on a bias. So this is what I mean here. We can join. Oh, Southern California, I wish. Hi, everybody. So we could join 2 strips together straight down, like I have done here. But when you go to fold that, you have a bulky seam here. And we just saw in our double folded tape that we're going to have 4 layers of fabric to go through. So we like to join our tape on a bias so that when you fold it over, you only have a little bit of a seam. It's not so bulky. Okay, so we have the different types and how we join it. I'll give you a better tutorial on that in a second, but I wanted to show you what you could use your bias tape for. So I know a lot of you are making masks and scrub caps and things like that, and they use a lot of the double fold bias tape. So here I have one of my birthday buntings that I used to make a ton of, and I've used the double folded bias tape on the top here. And it's just everything is sealed on the inside and you stitch close to the edge. I stitched really close there, maybe a little bit off. And then it's all encased. So that's the kind of bias tape a lot of people are using for masks and such. And then another use for bias tape is I make some clothes. And so I use a double fold bias tape a lot of times on the edge of this is the collar or the neckline, and then my arm. And then some patterns have you fold it under and it gives you an even cleaner edge. So much fun. And you can have fun with this. I've seen skirts with this done on the bottom for the hem, and it's like a pop of color. They use something completely different. And then of course, the way that I use it the most, I have this cute little rug mug that I made just last week or the week before. And it's made on my M7 Continental, and I use my embroidery machine and my Memory Craft 550E embroidery machine to make that. That's one of the patterns included. And so this is the half fold quilt binding, and then you stitch that to the front and then you fold it over, and I will finish this by sewing it to the back. So then I can either machine stitch or I will probably hand stitch because it's a little project and that's fun to do in front of the TV. So then that binds in the edge and it's nice and easy. Okay, so when we are joining strips, today we are going to use strips cut from the width of fabric or from selvage to selvage. And the selvage is that nice finish edge that comes on and often has writing on it when you buy fabric. And so you just cut strips from one end to another. And this one is 2.5 inch because that's typically what I use for when I'm binding quilts. But you can use whatever you would prefer. And to show you just a little bit more about the bias, when we stretch it from selvage to selvage, there's a little bit of stretch there, but not very much. And when we stretch it when we're parallel to the selvage, there's almost no give. And so when you do that on the bias, which is on a 45 degree angle, there's so much more stretch. So if you're doing a project that has a lot of curves, like a curved quilt corner or a really curvy neckline, you might want to cut it on a bias, and you can look for that online. There are tons and tons of tutorials on that. So, but this is for just straight strips. Oh my goodness, it's hard to say. Oh no, Sandra, I'm sorry that the screen is frozen. I hope it clears up for you. Anyone else having that issue? I hope not. Okay, so I call this my 7 method. So if you have your fabric and you can kind of tell this is the bottom and this is the top. So we're going to be putting it right side up. And so this is the top of our 7. And then I'm going to add the next strip right side down into a 7 pattern. And you just want this on right angles up here. Let me see if I can get a little bit closer. Okay. And now what you can simply do, and I'm going to show you a little bit of a trick for this after. Okay, you can take from this corner to this corner, we're going to draw a straight line, and that's the line you're going to sew on. So you can pick your favorite marking tool of your choice. I tend to use pencils when it's going to not matter, because they kind of show up on everything. Yes, doing another live on bias cut strips would be an excellent idea, Liz. Okay, now we're going to go over to my machine, and you'll see over here, I just have my A-foot on, but I have this piece of tape here. And this piece of tape is on the center line from where the needle goes down in to all the way to the front. So when I do that, because when I put my needle down into the fabric at the corner here, and I'm going to sew on that line, you'll also see that now it lines up here. So I don't even have to mark this line, and I use this all the time when I'm sewing like squares together from corner to quarter, so I don't have to mark every one. Okay, so let's sew this down. So you can either follow this line that you drew, or like I've done here, I'm just going to let this slowly come up the tape, and it magically helps you sew a straight line without having to draw. So once you've combined that, I just cut. My M7 has a fancy cutter for me, and I love it. Okay, so we have it, and I followed the tape, and look, I was pretty close on there. Then you can either use your rotary cutter, or I'm just going to use scissors, and you're going to cut about a 1/4 inch away from that line you just sewed. And then, oh, my cutting skills are off today. I need to sharpen scissors. Anyone else have that problem where scissors go dull so quickly? Okay, and then I cut off the little dog ears. And when you've done that, then you open it up and you have a nice joint on a 45 degree angle on the bias. And you just keep on adding strips until you have the length of the bias strip that you need. And then you can either press these open, or I just press them to one side. The only tricky thing that I'm going to caution you about is solids. Solids are tricky because there really is no top or bottom. Most of them you can use on either side. So this one I've already joined here, but now you obviously have a top. So you need to make sure that this always stays on top. And so the way I do it is I just put my thumb on the top, and I slowly feed it through until I get to the next end. And then I put that down, and that is the top of my 7 for the next piece. So I know this is the top way up, because I don't know how many times I've had to pick apart my seams because I have so many different strips going different directions. It's annoying, but I love a solid. So so if you went and did that, then you know the next strip is top or bottom. It doesn't matter which one you're adding to the top, but this is right side up and you can start your next 7. Sometimes people like to pin the strips together. If you're starting out, that's a good idea, just out of the way so they're not slipping while you're sewing them together. Okay, so that's how you join the strips. But I wanted to show you a cool little hack for making a double fold or single fold bias tape, especially if you can't get your hands on a maker. I used to have one of those electric ones. They were machines, and you just fed the strips into the front of the machine and it ironed it, and it came out all done at the end. And I sold it because I wasn't using it so much, but I'm sure whoever I sold it to is using it a ton right now. So for a little hack, you can kind of see maybe on here, I've already drawn some little dots. So you need 2 pins and you need dots about and this is my pressing board, so I can pin and iron right onto it. So I've put a dot here 3 inches apart, and then I did another set of dots just 1 inch apart. And this is our guideline for putting in our pins. Okay, so this is the pokey part. I always poke myself while I'm doing this. So you want to put the pin in before your first dot, and then come up through your dot. So that's the beginning, and then you want to go all the way, and then you can sort of see my other dot right here, and you stick it in. So that's the first one, and you're going to do this again right here. Hello, Wasaga Beach. I love it in Wasaga Beach. What a beautiful area. Okay, so I have the next one set up, and then I have a strip of fabric pre-prepared. So you don't have to do this step, but I do it. I just give it a quick fold in half so I know where the center line is, because you're going to be folding both sides into the center line. And then I've started this one and given it a quick press. So I folded one side in and another side in. So to be clear, this is a 2-inch strip that I've cut, and then these are 1 inch in between. So you feed the start of it in under the pin, and you kind of get it straightened. And I put out the tail off to the right as straight as I can. And then I do this through the second one, just like this. Okay. And then I put glass pins in, and then I can iron right in here or on the left hand side, or however you do this, because my left-handed friends, I'm sure, would do it backwards. And as you slowly pull it in, it will keep, on this side, it will keep folding it for you. So it's a lot less effort, and you can do it quite quickly. In fact, like sometimes I set my iron down here and I just get a roll going on and it keeps going. But see here where it starts to go a little astray, so then you just kind of have to fiddle with it to get it back on track. So that is how I do an easier single fold. And then once it's done, you move it all the way through, and then you fold it over for a double fold. So just a nice, cheap and easy way to do your single fold. Okay, but now I want to show you a little bit. I have some single fold, and I'm going to sew it down as a double fold, and a couple tricks, well, one trick on how I keep it nice and even. So I'm going to come back over to my M7. How are you guys all doing in there? Okay, I'm going to switch out my foot. So I had just on my A foot, and now the M7 comes with this 1/4 inch foot with a guide. So every machine comes with slightly different feet. So I want you to be really careful when you try this on your machine. I'm going to attach this. And the needle position is set up for a straight stitch, but you'll notice it still clears, and I use the hand dial to make sure that it clears. And so it's still going in safely within my foot. If it doesn't, you'll have to change your needle position. And so when I put my strip under there, I can run it. Okay, I can run it alongside this guide, and it's going to stitch out really nicely for us. And then I don't have to worry so much about where how my stuff is being fed in. It's just going to automatically sew in the place that I want it. And let's cut that so you can see. And that gives us a nice straight stitch along there. So you can, there's other feet where you can find it just will run along the side without a problem. It's really like fiddle around with your machine. Find the feet that are going to work for you, that you're not going to have to be so intent the whole time, because it gets kind of dizzying. Like I end up watching it and my eyes go a little bit funny. Oh, I am using, good question, Liz, just my, the zigzag needle plate that comes with my machine. And you want to make sure that you're always using the right needle plate, because you don't want to break needles. You don't want to damage your machine. So I always tend to err on the side of caution and use my hand wheel to make sure that everything's happy before I start stitching things out. Okay. And then for our quilters, one last little thing for our quilters, I have an idea for all your extra quilt binding that you might want to turn into double fold tape. While I have your attention though, I want to make sure that you know that we have lots of great deals going on during May, and check out our website. And our dealers are still, a lot of them are working and open. So you can check out on Janome Canada to see which dealers are available, and check them out, talk to them. We're drop shipping machines. There's still lots of stuff going on, so check out with them. Oh yes, Liz, you could do a tiny zigzag with that as well. So this is my quilt. I have some quilt binding, and I've simply almost folded in half. You'll see that it's a little bit off, and I've given that a press. And this edge here is then not finished, but we're going to take care of that with a zigzag. So we're going to go back over to the machine, and I'm going to show you one of my favorite feet. So this one is the F foot, and it's a satin stitch foot. I love that it's clear, so I can see exactly where my fabric's going, how it's being fed in. So I'm going to switch out my feet and put this one on. And then there's so many zigzag options, but what I really like, show you my screen, this giant screen. I like number 10, and it's on the right, and then this one's more in the middle, but I like the one on the right. And I bring it back down here. And then when I go to sew, there's a little slit here, I'm going to show you, where the thread goes through, and I just line that up with the edge that's folded over. And that I know that my zigzag is going to go over that edge and seal it in. So then I just start sewing, and it zigzags for me right over that edge. And it keeps it nice and neat, and I can see everything that's going on without an issue. And then when I cut that, it gives you a nice, here I'll bring you over here so you can see it a little bit better. A nice clean zigzag there. And that seals it in. It turns your quilt binding into a double fold without having to do a ton of ironing or burning of your fingers. Oh, Sandra, I'm so sorry that it was frozen through that, but I'm going to have it uploaded to our YouTube account on Janome Life on YouTube, and we'll have these and a bunch of our other presentations are going to be uploaded there, so you can catch them anytime. Also, Liz on Thursday is going to be joining us and giving us a talk about border guide feet and embellishing a finishing a sample. So that's basically everything I had to share with you today, unless you guys have any questions. If you need projects or are bored and have things that you want to sew or questions about your machine, there are a ton of documents, a ton of blog posts on janomelife.wordpress.com. And that's basically all I have to share with you guys. Thank you so much for joining in. I've had a ton of fun. Happy sewing, everyone. Take care.